surpasses even the most tender example of mercy that we know involving only humans. Now, for evidence of that, let's turn in our Bibles to Isaiah chapter 49, and we'll consider verse 15. It's Isaiah 49 and verse 15. Can a woman forget her nursing child, or have no compassion for the son of her womb? Even if these women forget you, I would never forget you. Would you not agree? The most tender example of mercy that we know as humans is that of a mother with a newborn child. It really is an amazing phenomenon. The new father and the new mother can be in the same bed, equal distance away from the crib, but the little baby lets out a cry. The father keeps sleeping, keeps snoring. But the mother, what about her? She hears the little cry of her baby. No matter what time of the day it is, she gets up to check on the child and to tend to it. Now, there's a science behind it. At that time, a mother has the elevated hormone oxytocin. That's the love hormone. So she's really in a position to do that. But the mother cannot always answer the bell. We know that because of imperfection, of illness, and other things. The mother cannot always answer the bell. In fact, sadly, we've seen reports on the news that sometimes mothers have not always dealt with their children mercifully. But what about Jehovah? There has never been a time when Jehovah has failed to act mercifully. It really surpasses the most tender example that we know. What else can we say about Jehovah's mercy? What else makes it unique? Well, you know, as humans, we tend to favor individuals. We favor our families. It happens so often, there's a word for it. It's called nepotism. Right? We favor our close
Nipple,
friends.
baby.
Once again, that happens so often.
Nepotism.
There's a word for it. It's called cronyism. As humans, we happen to favor those who we like, and we look out for them. But what about Jehovah? Well, Jehovah says in his word, the Bible, that the sun shines on the righteous and the wicked. So this morning, individuals like us, we could have prayed to Jehovah sincerely, and we received some rain, and we got the sun. But also individuals who never even thought about Jehovah receive the rain and the sun as well. You see, Jehovah's mercy is all-encompassing. Everyone benefits from his mercy. Now, if we really want to understand Jehovah's mercy, we're going to take an example that we can really appreciate. So we'll take as a mini case study the example of Jehovah dealing with the nation of Israel. When you think about the nation of Israel, what comes to mind? Do you think about the Baal worship, sacred poles, all the false worship they got into?
Evil.
It was almost like
worship,
they would get into these bad habits, and then eventually it would come back to Jehovah and repent. Jehovah would save them, rescue them, then they would go back into those bad habits, rinse, wash, and repeat. Well, does that mean then that Jehovah's mercy is without limits? Well, let's find out in the Bible. Let's turn to Hosea chapter 1, and we'll consider verse 6. Hosea 1, verse 6. She conceived again and gave birth to a daughter, and he told him, name her Leruhamah, for I will no longer show mercy to the house of Israel, because I will certainly drive them away. So there in verse 6 it stated, Jehovah would no longer show mercy to the house of Israel. Now why is that? Well, Jehovah gave them 200 years to make adjustments. So for 200 years they considered and carried out Baal worship, calf worship in particular. See, Jehovah gave them time to make the adjustments, to go to Jerusalem, worship him properly. They refused to do so. So eventually their sorry, not really sorry way of worship had run its course. Jehovah has said no more. So we know that Jehovah has a limit on his mercy. A time will come when Jehovah says enough is enough.
No grace.
Well, that was with the group. What about as individuals? How does Jehovah deal with you and me personally? Well, we have it in the Bible. Let's consider Exodus chapter 34, and we'll look at verses 6 and 7. These verses have been called some of the most tender words in the entire Bible, because this is Jehovah describing himself to you and I. So let's take consideration of verses 6 and 7. Jehovah was passing before him and declaring, Jehovah, Jehovah, a God merciful and compassionate, slow to anger and abundant in loyal love and truth, showing loyal love to thousands, pardoning error and transgressions and sin. But he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, bringing punishment for the error of fathers upon sons and upon grandsons, upon the third generation and upon the fourth generation. Did you notice, though, in verse 6, how Jehovah described himself to you and I? He said that he was a God merciful and compassionate, slow to anger. See, that is our God, Jehovah. Now imagine approaching Jehovah with a problem or a mistake. That's a very appealing prospect, isn't it? We know that Jehovah, if we are truly repentant and we turn around, he will extend mercy and forgive us. Now that doesn't mean, though, that Jehovah's mercy is in some way tempered by his justice. He would never say that, right? His qualities of mercy and justice are always in perfect balance. But if we wanted to put it into a nice little bow, we could say that Jehovah is firm where necessary, merciful wherever possible. That's how we can describe Jehovah. But once again, to really understand the depth of Jehovah's mercy, let's take an example, an individual, King David, for example. You know, King David did some things that we probably would never do. He was involved in adultery, and he also killed another man, right? He committed first-degree murder. Those two acts, separately, they evoke the death penalty. Well, do you know what Jehovah said about David? He said that he was a man agreeable to his heart. So how could Jehovah say that about David when he committed those two heinous acts? Well, let's do some digging on David. First of all, we know that David truly repented, right? You can look at Psalm 52 or Psalm 31 and see that David had those words of repentance for Jehovah. But there was something else that David did that was very important. You know, David had multiple chances to kill Jehovah's anointed servant, King Saul. Many opportunities, but David did not take it. He showed mercy to King Saul in those situations. So Jehovah saw that, he noted that, and now Jehovah showed mercy to David. Now what's the lesson for us? If we show mercy to others, Jehovah will extend mercy to us. Now think about the magnitude of that. In the future, in a symbolic sense, every man, woman, and child will have to stand before Jehovah in judgment. At that time, will any of us say to Jehovah, tell it to me straight, Jehovah. I want my judgment without mercy. Just give it to me straight. No, not at all. We will want Jehovah to recount every single nice deed that we did for someone, every merciful act, our best intentions, not just our wayward actions. Well, according to Jehovah's example with other servants of his, he will, if we show mercy.
When I say you're a genuine queen because you show mercy. I'm sorry.
Well, that is Jehovah. Now let's talk about his son, who really demonstrated mercy on the earth. So while he was on the earth, he did give us some nice instructions on how to be merciful. And there are some guidelines that we have. The first guideline is we must show mercy to maintain a good relationship with Jehovah. Now, once again, we could be the most zealous person, the most studious person, the walking embodiments of the Insight book, and understand all the procedures that make up the truth. But yet, if we lack mercy, it's all for naught. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 9 and verse 13, I want mercy and not sacrifice. Serving Jehovah without practicing mercy is like a pencil without lead. It's pointless, right? We need to have mercy in our dealings with others. So really it comes down to this. We need to examine ourselves and see the kind of people that we are. And there's some nice questions that we can do. For instance, am I overly demanding of others? Am I critical of others? Do I complain about the shortcomings of others? If so, we truly need to use mercy to curb those different traits, right? There are three cancers in life: complaining, criticism, and also comparisons, right? Those are the three cancers in life. We have to really use mercy to curb those things and take them out of our life. Now, our second guideline for mercy. Our motives for extending mercy must be pure. Now let's read Matthew chapter 6. And we'll look at verses 1 through 4. Take care not to practice your righteousness in front of men, to be noticed by them. Otherwise, you will have no reward with your Father who is in the heavens. So when you make gifts of mercy, do not blow a trumpet ahead of you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be glorified by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But you, when making gifts of mercy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Let your gifts of mercy may be in secret. Then your Father who looks on in secret will repay you. So let's hone in on verse 2. There, Jehovah inspired Jesus to say this. So when you make gifts of mercy, do not blow a trumpet ahead of you. See, that's very important. Now just imagine, for instance, in the back of the Kingdom Hall, you heard a trumpet blast, right? And of course, we all turned around to look what was happening, and we saw that a brother put down his trumpet, reach into his pocket, take out his wallet, and give a sister who is in need a great deal of money. So we can see that he checked off the boxes, right? The feelings of compassion were there. Then the brother took action to bring relief to the sister. What was the issue? He wanted everyone to know about it. So according to this verse, that brother should receive nothing from Jehovah by way of a blessing, because the fact that everyone got to see it, the fact that he publicized that event, well, he was paid in full at that point. So what's the lesson for us? If we want our deeds of mercy to really reach Jehovah, then we can't publicize them. We don't let our left hand know what our right hand is doing. We keep those things between us and Jehovah. Right? That way we can ensure that our motives are pure. Now our third guideline. Mercy requires positive action. Now what comes to mind is one of the most famous parables that Jesus ever gave. And you can see it there. The parable is involving the neighborly Samaritan. You recall what happened. A man there was left on the road after receiving a vicious beating. Now surely someone would come by and help this man while he was on the road. Well, first up, a priest came by. He saw the man in that situation, but he crossed over the other side of the road and kept on going. The next, a Levite man came by. He saw that man in that pitiable state. He also just kept on walking by. Well, finally, the Samaritan man came by. What did he do? Well, he saw the man. He was moved with pity for the man. He started to tend to the man's wounds. He put him on his horse. He took the man to an inn. He used 2 days' wages to take care of this man. See, his mercy required positive action. Now think back to the priest, think back to the Levite. These are two spiritual men with weighty responsibilities. They could have thought to themselves, you know what, bless his heart, but we have to go and take care of some other responsibilities. We have privileges to take care of. See, we never want to get into the habit of putting our theocratic privileges before helping others. Because you recall how Jesus concluded this illustration. After talking about what the neighborly Samaritan man did, he said, go on and do the same yourself. So that is our assignment, to do the same, to be merciful and take those positive actions. But you know about Jesus, he also demonstrated to all of us how to show mercy. We have several examples in the Bible. We're going to focus in on one right now. Let's go to Mark chapter 6 and verse 34. Mark chapter 6 and verse 34. Now just to give you some background on this account, here we find Jesus in year 2 of the most extensive preaching campaign that we can ever imagine. And then in verse 27, you notice that John the Baptizer was just killed. So now you can imagine the emotional toll that was weighing on Jesus and his disciples. And then in verse 31, after spending an entire day preaching, they wanted to come, you yourselves, privately into an isolated place and rest up for a little bit. They wanted time to rest and enjoy a meal. They wanted that. What was the issue?
Me.
Well, the crowds just kept following. We'll pick up there in verse 34 and see what happened. Well, in getting out, he saw a large crowd, and he was moved with pity for them, because they were as sheep without a shepherd. And he started to teach them many things. So once again, here we have Jesus extremely tired. dealing with the emotional toll and turmoil, losing someone very close to them, John the Baptizer, in a very vicious way. So that toll was on him. But how did he view the people? It said he saw this large crowd, and he was moved with pity for them, because to him, they were like a sheep without shepherd. Now, what do we know about sheep? Well, sheep lack the ability to care for themselves. They can't, so they depend on and rely on a shepherd to provide for all of their needs. So when Jesus saw these people, he saw that they were lacking spiritual guidance, and he was there for them. If you look at the parallel account in Matthew, it said that they were actually like sheep without a shepherd, but they were also torn apart. So he saw these people, that they were hurting spiritually. So what did he do for them? Well, in this situation, it would have been fair, you would think, to maybe teach one thing to them. Give them one nice scriptural point and let them go on. No, the Bible says that he taught them many things on this occasion, even though he was tired. And then, do you recall the time when he fed the people, 5 loaves and the 2 fish? That was this occasion too. So although he was tired, he did all of that for the people. He set a beautiful example in mercy for all of us. Well, now that we've talked about Jehovah's example, we've talked about Jesus, now the question is, what about us? What do we need to do? Well, let's consider in the Bible, Luke chapter 6 and verse 36. Luke 6 and verse 36. Continue being merciful just as your Father is merciful. You see, Jehovah wants us to respond to his mercy by being merciful to others. We talked earlier how Jehovah is like the sun. Mercy really starts with him. Well, we are like mirrors. We want Jehovah's mercy to really bounce off of us and reflect onto others. Right? We want to be refreshing to others in that manner. So how can we do this? There are 4 ways that we can actually show mercy in imitation of Jehovah. So the first way is be forgiving in imitation of Jehovah. Now that's a mouthful. Does our forgiveness come with a price? Do we tell people, you know what?
Yes.
I'll forgive you, but first you have to suffer.
Yes, it does.
You have to grovel a little bit. Is that Jehovah's way? No. Jehovah is on the lookout to show mercy to others. So we want the same attitude. So if a brother or sister very humbly approaches us and they apologize for making a mistake or doing something that really offended us, what should we do? We should really be ready to accept that apology. See, in that sense, we're peaceable. But there's even a better level to that. Instead of just waiting on them, as merciful people, we will initiate the peace between us. And that's called being a peacemaker. When we go to a place where peace isn't at and we really make peace, that's what we want to do in imitation of Jehovah. Forgive our brothers and sisters. Now the second thing that we can discern it by reading 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 4. It states, who comforts us in all our trials, so that we may be able to comfort others in any sort of trial with the comfort that we receive from God. So the key is, we may be able to comfort others in any sort of trial. So how do we do this? Well, we comfort others with words of encouragement. Now this one can be a challenge, because especially when a dear friend of ours loses someone in death, we may not have the words. We don't know what to say in those situations. So sometimes we may tend to stay away from that individual. See, that's a mistake. There's so much power in our presence alone. You could have a whole conversation with someone by just with your eyes, right? When they can see that you are truly feeling for them at that point in time. And if we don't know what to say, we can simply tell them, I am sorry for your loss, and just be there for them. See, that's being a good friend. But perhaps the best thing that we can do, the most effective thing that we can do in those situations also, is to write a note to our brother or sister. There were some examples in the July 2017 study edition of the Watchtower of different things that we can say and we can share with our brothers and sisters. For instance, this one, we don't know what to say except that we love you. We can't understand exactly how you feel, but Jehovah does and will keep raising you up. We hope that our prayers will help a little. And there was this expression: your loved one will never have to face the last enemy death ever again. In the meantime, his acts of faith live on until he stands up alive and whole in the paradise. See, we may not know what to say, but just expressing our thoughts in the best way possible and sending that to our brother or sister, that can have a powerful effect on them, and they can read that whenever they're down. They can get encouragement. But the key is we want to use our words to strengthen. Now, the third thing that we need to do to show mercy is to do good to others and share with them what you have. See, the operative words there are do good to others and share with them. It requires action once again. Because feelings of compassion are nice, but feelings have never helped anyone. Unspoken words are nice, but they've never benefited anyone. So we have to be active. For instance, what if we find out a brother or a sister has lost their job, right? They're struggling financially. What can we do to assist them? Well, you notice in the picture, our sister is providing some money to our friends in need. And do you hear the sound? There's no trumpet playing.